To beat the dead horse on the nerfs, I I'm not happy with what they've done, and it's like it's not just the recent nerfs, it's the old nerfs, which is why I am not doing STO content, which is why I am not purchasing anything from the game. I'm not even going in and doing the event to get the fucking cat. That's how pissed off I am at the nerfs. And you know what? I'm not a unique snowflake. I know there's other people out there that are pissed off just the same as me. So, yeah, get your shit together, Cryptic, and undo some of these nerfs and do some proper balancing to the game. That's what I'll say
Well,
about that.
just to, if I could jump in real quick, as the other person here that is kind of not playing right now. Um, I've been playing other games with the little time I've got, and it's like even without these nerfs, you really get some perspective about just how poorly balanced the game is in general. Like even if they revert these nerfs, this has never been a game that they were great at balancing. Uh, so
I agree with that.
yeah.
Well, I think we can get further into the balancing issue without rehashing some of the nerfs here going forward when we get to the topic of Porticus. Some of the other stuff on the list, like I am absolutely stoked about the Odyssey going to becoming canon, actually showing up in the show. Although I suspect we probably won't see it till the very end of the season. But I hope we get to see more of it than just like a brief glimpse at the end of a season. Like that ship is just freaking awesome. And you know what? Like the person who designed it and Thomas Maroney as well. I forgot who the original designer, what his name was, but really, it's just phenomenal that something from a game, from like a shitty game, even making it onto the screen, becoming canon. That's just
Something from
awesome.
a fan creation onto a game onto into canon. I think it's crazy. It's really cool.
It's still my favorite Enterprise design.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
I
it-
am very changed. I don't know how many times I had to change my. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
no, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know how many times I had to change my uniform because it is cool and that's Stowe. And it seems like I can't remember if it was the last stream or not. Like it seemed like Kale when it was one of when he was doing by himself, just a Q&A. It seemed like he was trying to say that Stowe is going to become canon or allude to something like not just the ships but Stowe in itself. I don't know how they're going to do that, but it would be kind of cool. Um, going back to not necessarily going back to the nerfs, and I bring that up because I'm still in that boat to say, if it doesn't, if I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to really necessarily, um, I don't want to say care about it, but again, Mixed opened my eyes when he said, well, yeah, but people did pay for it. So yeah, I hope going forward with what we're going to talk about later, things change. I don't know what that change is going to look like, nor what change that I'm looking for, because I think all five of us played this game differently when we do play, when we're on. So that's something for me. It's almost a non-issue, but it is because I still see, comments till this day on when new ships come out, the traits and all that stuff. But again, we'll kind of touch base on that. But the first thing, I guess not first thing, because the next thing that we're going to bring up is the carrier bundle. So that happened, and I think I've been waiting since 2014 for the Norway to drop. Now, before I continue to change my uniform, I will pass it on to Spencer first and to get his thoughts on what he thinks of that bundle.
I think the bundle during a 35% sale is not the worst deal in the game. The Norway is a very solid ship. The Valkyrie pets are actually really good performers. I've been having a lot of success from them. But the Seneca suffers from the same issue any other science carrier suffers, in that they're just weak. They're losing 2 weapons compared to flight deck carriers. They don't have a secondary deflector compared to a science dreadnought. The Seneca, it's a capable ship. You can still do any content in the game with it, but that's, you can do any content with the T5 ship still. But when you look at the value of what the Seneca is versus other options out there, it's a bit weaker than, the flight deck carriers for its overall performance. The Norway is a really good ship. Honestly, it's one of the best DPS C-store ships we have ever gotten. It's basically a Delkino Light. It's a very potent platform. It's very versatile too. I know Stu and I have been doing cannon scatter volley on it, but you can do beam overload on it if you hate yourself. You could do torps on it. You could even turn it into a tank or support, really, if you wanted to. It's just a very flexible platform. So it's a ship that I would highly recommend.
Mixed mapping.
Yeah, I agree with everything Spencer said there. I picked up the Norway and have been playing with it and really, really enjoying it. It's a fun ship. It flies good. I'm really happy with it. As for the carrier part of it, I skipped it because I like to play to build for, the most damage I can do. With that being said, though, that's everybody wants to do a good amount of damage, but at the end of the day, I mean, what I've come to realize is this is a role play game. Most people are here for Star Trek. And while you're not going to min-max that ship like you can a flight deck carrier or something else, if you like it, and I do like the way it looks, I think it's really cool looking. Some of the close-ups on the hangar bays that are open and stuff, I really, really enjoy it. And if I was here for that, then I would have probably bought it, and you could still, like Spencer said, play all the content. You could bring that into elite content, no problem. It can do everything in the game. It's just not going to break any records, and while I'm not here just for breaking records, for me, my bang for buck is, performance to a certain degree. There's some stuff I'll buy where I just like the way it looks and I don't care as much, but it still needs to have some value, and the value comes from utility in the way that, I like to play the game, which is building. This is, a puzzle game kind of for me in terms of, putting together ships and things like that. But, I think the honest answer is this game is being run as a role-playing game. I mean, let's be honest. Look at the nerfs and the adjustments, the balancing, and blah, 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 blah. That's been like that since well before I ever played the game. And that's because that's not what it's about for the people that are making it, unfortunately. My issue, and not to beat the dead horse, but is the way that they went about doing nerfs. I made purchases based on the way things were, while at the same time they were in the middle of changing them. And there should have been something said about that prior, so there was a CYA. The rest of it, I can get over it. I mean, that's fine. Stuff changes. I understand that's, why, what STO is about. I just don't like how they went about doing that part of it. But I think the bundle's fine. The Norway is excellent. And if you just enjoy carriers, and I've had people, they don't care about maxing out. It gets the job done. They have fun doing it. They're routing their pets around and stuff. It's a great looking ship. If you're into that, go for it. It's a good deal, especially on sale.
Mr. Goss?
I don't have a lot to add because they did a great job there. Other than the one thing that really irritated me is the runabout pets. It just felt kind of lazy that they're like, it's the runabouts, but we swapped one ability out, and it's like, come on,
Can I add one other thing? We should also mention the sale progression on that it was released at a percentage off. I think it was 25%. And What was it? 2 weeks later? It was
yes.
1 week later. So it was supposed to be 25% for 2 weeks on release. And on week 2, it dropped down to 30%. And so, I mean, really, I think, when we're having these discussions, there's a distinction between like the game and the stuff that's in the game and the way that the game is ran, right? And the decisions that are made in the way that they implement and sell things. And I think that's really crappy. If you went out and bought that bundle, on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you would have waited to 8, you would have saved a couple bucks.
That's what happened to me because, I ended up getting it for the 30 or 35% off for whatever it was. Because when it was announced, now if I was actively playing, that bundle's right up my alley, right? Anyone who knows me, um, and I kind of was hemming and hawing, and I thought, well, maybe I'll get it before the initial sale goes off, and I ended up not doing that. But then I logged in and saw that it was 35% off or whatever because they had the ship bundle sale, and I thought the same thing. I thought, man, if you bought it at 25% off, you must be pissed off right now because they almost immediately put it down for a bigger sale. They do that kind of stuff all the time.
And just to butt in, that made me wonder too, is it because it wasn't selling good enough? Were people not buying the entire bundle?
Well, I mean, was like for the whole C store though, right? And I
Yeah.
know they've said in the past they don't always not that they're automated, but like I think they've said in the past that some of these things were not like they're not completely, under their control or whatever, that because I think things that there's been funny things that have lined up with dates in the past, and they said, "Oh, well, we didn't really, that was going to happen anyway. We didn't really have control over that." So it's like maybe this sale was just scheduled to happen at this time anyway, and it just happened to line up wrong.
Bad planning.
That wouldn't be surprising at all.
And they plan ahead, and then they just, oh look, oh by the way, it popped up on my calendar. Surprise.
Well, Gearbox is in charge now, presumably, but I mean, I remember them saying that before that, Perfect World would have some because they would coordinate sales across different studios and things. So I think there was some like higher level orchestration of some of these sales and stuff going on.
Yeah, no. Mr. Lowlife, Sark.
Regarding the carrier bundle, and just taking a look at the stats of the Norway, I have to I'll apologize to you, Triz. I really don't like the way the Norway looks. I'm sorry, but
More
that's a
like the
Canadian
no way,
sorry,
am I
by the way.
right?
That, yeah, that's a Canadian sorry, by the way. That's not actually an apology. That's just a an expression
Courtesy.
of sympathy. Yeah, it's just an expression of it's like hearts and thoughts, thoughts and prayers and stuff
You're
for
not
your
wrong,
Norway.
though.
I don't. It
Wait,
doesn't.
wait,
It
are you
doesn't look good.
Canadian?
I am Canadian,
Yep.
but like stat wise, it's a really good ship. And yeah, you can actually turn this into a tank, into a crazy solid tank. Also, like if you run like the commander with suppression barrage and a couple other command abilities, just stack it up. Each command ability is a heal if you're using greater than the sum, like an AoE heal for the whole team. So yeah, it works. By the way, just want to point out because healing is not a thing in SEO. Technically, the only reason you would run a healer type boat would be to generate aggro. That is pretty much the only reason healing is, well, the only way healing is viable in this game is just aggro gen. But the other carrier, yeah, that. Hey, can we talk about the issue with carriers here for a second? I think the science carriers need to be normalized. I think both the science carriers and the dreadnought carriers need to be normalized with their non-carrier variants. So, what I mean by that is the science carriers should get the secondary deflector like the science ship. They should be basically exactly the same thing, have everything a science ship has plus 2 hangar bays, which is what the flight deck carriers, the formerly known as flight deck cruisers, have. They are basically cruisers. They have every single thing a cruiser has plus 2 hangar decks. The same thing should be done to the dreadnought carriers. They should have the experimental weapon slot on them. They should be basically a big escort with 2 hangar bays. This should be done. You like we really need to get some balance in this game. We should like stop talking about it, and people should, like the people who are in charge and have some say in the matter, get actually some action into this for the longevity of the game. So if it's not someone at Cryptic who's listening to this, someone at Gearbox, you guys need to take a serious look at this game. This game is really, really broken. There is no such thing as balance in this game. But yeah, those ships need to be balanced. Both the science carriers and the dreadnought carriers. The dreadnought carriers are in a better place. They can perform, but they could do better. They could be normalized.
You know,
Either
I
that or
agree.
nerf the shit out of the dreadnought, the flight deck carriers.
I know
Sorry,
we're
go
going to
ahead,
get into
Spencer.
this later, but on the point of the person who has been holding these science carriers back was Bordicus. In the past, he stated, that I forget his exact statement, but he basically alluded that he didn't want to give them like a secondary deflector because it'd make them too overpowered. So with him moving away, maybe whoever's taken charge will have a different viewpoint on these carriers.
Well,
Well,
spoiler
he did
alert
something.
for my opinions on Bordicus, but I don't know that he would know game balance if it bit him in the behind. So his statements about what would be overpowered should be taken with some salt. But I agree completely. I always thought they should get a secondary deflector because even if they were magically like just unfair, better than regular science vessels, which would not really be true across the board. Um, the Vern would probably still be better than all of them or whatever. But it's like they just feel terrible to fly, and it's like you give them a secondary deflector, suddenly they don't feel so bad. So earlier McStud was talking about how like this is a role play game. Well, if they don't care about balance, I should at least feel like I'm not flying a junker. And science carriers more than any other ship in the game, you just get this overwhelming feeling that you're flying a junker.
He did something similar with the dreadnought carriers when the Narcine first came out. Remember when the Narcine first came out? It had like 5 engineering consoles. We were like, wait, what? Why? Why?
That's
It's like
great.
just some incomprehensible stuff was being made there. The carriers in general need, like all carriers, not just like the dual hangar ones, the sub hangars, the one with one hangar bay and stuff, also need a little bit of buffing. Pets need to be buffed. All pets, or we should say perhaps the carriers and sub carriers should give the pets a bigger bonus, and the dual hanger carriers should give a bigger bonus. Like it could be something as simple as just like sharing your universal global crit with your pets. Like
Yeah,
imagine if the mastery trait on your carrier gave you that, for example.
I think
Um,
all pets should just have your crit chance.
well, in general, yeah. So it should be like something like a small buff, maybe crit hit, or start out with crit damage first, and the dual carriers will have like crit hit included with that. Like you probably
Other
want to have
people have suggested, letting them get your tactical, console buffs, your Cat One or whatever. Also,
I mean, it's certainly possible. Stuff like that, like buffs, like certain buffs to pets, like a speed buff to your pets, or like a turn rate buff to your pets, would actually go like a really long way. Hell, you know what would even be better than all of that? Freaking cooldown reduction for your pet abilities because they don't have any.
I thought if they did something
Remember
like
back?
adding two carriers, something like you would have with like I don't know, like a command ship. You know how it has the command mechanics, and you can turn the tide, that kind of thing. If they developed something that was specific for science carriers, only, where you would be able to buff your pets or buff the recharge or whatever, it builds up over time, and you can click it, some kind of mechanic like that to be that only science carriers would have to give them, because there's a give and a take, right? You're not you don't have the best movement speed. You have the two less weapons, but you have the two hangar bays, and if you had some sort of activatable mechanic built into the ship, it'd give you a little bit more you could do with it, and it would isolate it to just carriers and not every single pet in the game.
Another move that would probably also kind of benefit carriers, even tangentially, would possibly removing some distance limits to certain abilities, not perhaps like gravity well or anything like that, but some of the heals. If you can take away the 10-kilometer limit of like heals, for example, make them 15 kilometers or 20 kilometers for certain abilities, that would possibly benefit carriers if you're running solo and you can heal your pets from 20 kilometers away. As an example, that's more into like bridge officer ability rebalance.
I think
I'm going in a different direction here.
just in this couple minutes, I mean, we've come up with a ton of different ideas. Some of them are probably doable, some of them aren't. The question is, though, do they know there's a problem? Do they care? Are they interested in fixing it? Because that's what I always end up coming back to with a lot of, some of these more negative discussions we have, is that I feel like in a lot of cases they're oblivious. They have no idea that, that this is a concern or an issue whatsoever. I mean, I've never gotten a questionnaire, and I don't think anybody else has. When I log into World of Warships every, I don't know, month or so, it pops right up in the game for a take a quick survey. In fact, most of the games, I've been playing a lot of New World lately, and they are interested in player feedback so they can make that game as enjoyable as possible for the people that play it. I think all of this goes to a greater issue where there's just a disconnect. They have the Star Trek IP, and you don't have anywhere else to go. And I feel like they just ride on that, and they're just unaware that, especially long-term players, if you're new to the game, if you haven't been playing a year or less or whatever, none of this is a concern to you, because there's so much game to play and enjoy and just be in the Star Trek world. The problem you start to run into is you get to the end of the game, in game, and you're looking around, you're saying, okay, what are the different things I can make up to do? And that's when these problems really start to expose themselves.
Yep. I also think there's just a general issue, and I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think they have anyone currently internally, especially like on the systems teams, that actually like is that engaged with the game themselves. So they often are not understanding builds, the way we play, things like that. Just the disconnect there is massive, and them not having people internally that play the game is just brutal for it. Did we lose somebody?
We lost.
My Discord crashed. I had to restart it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think they have the talent or the manpower, woman power, whatever power to get it done, or the skill or the notes. I don't think there's I think there's notes and stuff. Documentation is rumored to be very bad. So
and
yeah.
if they have nobody internally that like plays the game, then I mean that disconnect, and without any kind of outreach to the overall community, how could you possibly have any idea? I mean, I was talking about this the other day with somebody, I can't remember, but I worked construction years back, and we would get plans for buildings, and we're looking at this, and we're just like, these guys have, this all looks fine on paper, but in reality, you can't build it like that, and I think software designers, we beat them up a lot. But on one side of it, I'm like, well, they make the game, so they got to know. Well, I think it's the same kind of thing, where you can design things and make adjustments and do whatever it is. But if you don't actually play the game, you don't actually utilize it, in real life, then you have really no idea, what the implications are going to be of what you're doing and what you're changing or what you're not changing. And so I think it comes back. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just a further disconnect, between how we really play the game. Because I mean, we've seen some of, the devs builds and things like that. And, they don't need to be the best in the world, but I mean, they're bad. I mean, it's clear that they don't understand the basics, and you're building, designing, and updating the game. And I think that's why we find ourselves in the position that we're in at the end game.
Yeah, I think it was quite showing when Bordicus asked why people would use mines on a ship with command seating. Like that's just
Wow, I missed that
yeah.
whole.
Goodbye, Goss.
Literally had to mute just to say something. I mean, so just to answer a question I saw there in chat earlier, the nerfs, Sir Trans, I believe you were the one asking, was with Agony Redistributor, Neutronic Eddies. There's 2 more consoles, Web Spinner, and something else. They just over nerfed it and then they adjusted it. And then we find ourselves still kind of talking about it because it kind of leads to one of the main points that we're going to talk about. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna drop some things from just what I heard from you guys, like the gameplay, and we're talking about end game. There's 2 end games that I see. One, player will return when there's new content drop. Right? They'll do the new content and then they peace out. Right? Maybe buy a couple ships when they release, do a couple pew pews, boom, they're out. And then there's, let's say, us, right? The ones who will play this every day and or have come up with our own way of enjoying Star Trek Online. I mean, for me personally, I've said this many times, it's just me being in Star Trek. I don't necessarily build, stop it, Spencer. I don't necessarily go max. I do dabble, but I find more fun in just trying to play the games, play Star Trek Online how I did when I was growing up. Hence, I'll go to say this is why I like the Norway. I know it's not the prettiest ship, but it was the starter ship from one of my favorite games growing up, which was Star Trek Starfleet Command 3. So I do admit it's not the prettiest ship, but for some reason, I do like it. Now, staying on the gameplay and sort of game portion with the devs and sort of how they perceive end game, they did not have a parser, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer. The parser is a player-made thing, yes?
It is, but they do have a very basic one internally because I know that was something Jet was involved in bringing back up to like a more modern, usable state for them internally. But the
Right.
likelihood is that they haven't probably used it since Jet left.
Well, like, even
So
if
it's
the parser is community made, they can still use it. Like,
No, you're right, and but this touches to the point that McStud made in the whole, this is an RP game, right? I would say I'm about over the 50% mark when it comes to just me playing Star Trek Online for the Star Trek part. Flying my ships, pressing my space bar, seeing my torpedoes fly and phasers fly. Really, going through new missions and all that stuff. So the other layer, of course, is what we'll get to, of course, when we start talking about Bordicus, but the ships itself, the carrier bundle, for me, I just got the Norway because, again, I said it before. I've been waiting for it, and plus, it's the last ship that needed to come into Star Trek Online from one of my favorite battle scenes, which is First Contact. And I don't know why it took this long, but whatever. It's here. It's one of my favorite ships. I did not get the Seneca. I just didn't like the look of it. Period. Point blank. It could have been the most, DPS performing ship in the game. I still would not have gotten it. The real cool thing about that whole bundle, though, is the fighters, the Valkyrie fighters. It's hopefully going to open up a whole new door when it comes to ships coming from other Star Trek games. Because all Thomas has got to do is just build it from scratch. They have the permission. That's, from kind of what he said on stream, is as long as they build it, they can go ahead, have at her. The only thing they can't do, of course, is other fan designs, but because there are a lot of beautiful ships out there that are fan designed. But anyways, and you kind of said it earlier too, McStud, it's kind of cool that a fan design became the flagship of Stowe, and then now is like the flagship of canon, in Star Trek Picard. So, but the Valkyrie, I'm not a sort of player that puts fighters on their ships because I didn't like the Peregrines. If I was going to put one, it'd be the Delta Flyers, but that felt way too advanced. But the Valkyrie Fighters feels like it fits the era, in my opinion. So for me, that bundle, I just got the Norway, and I'm really, really happy with it in the way it performs. Sorry, you were saying something?
What was I saying? I almost forgot. You know what? Something that would bring me back possibly would be Legendary Command Akira. It needs to happen, and bring back Jet. Let her build it, please.
I have bad news. If they just gave us a Norway Strike Wing escort with command, I have a feeling that the Akira is probably going to be a bit disappointing.
But that list that was shown on stream, though,
Don't tell me pilot.
Isn't the one we have already pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
look,
like-
there's only like 1 or 2 intel ships in the game. We could always use more of those, right?
Wait,
Well, no,
isn't
because-
the Zindi ship also, isn't that pilot? Isn't that command pilot?
My prediction is that we're going to get a pilot command Akira.
But that release is not until next year, though. That list that we saw, I thought they mentioned wasn't until next year. So I don't think there's going to be any more legendary ships released this year, personally. And I think that's going to be left for next year on top of the possible Mogai or Baldur.
Well, the year's almost over. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of the ships from other games making it into STO. I think Stu 1701 pointed out a very specific ship, which yeah, hopefully that makes it. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I feel that it's just a huge opportunity to just sort of, because a lot of us are ones that have played from before, and it'll open up TMP ships, TOS ships. I think it's going to be good. Now, again, it's the time it takes to do so. I think the Norway is a good test bed for that. Norway, the Valkyrie fighters, I should say, is a good test bed. I think they've been well received. Spencer, not even on stream, was just glowing about the Valkyrie fighters on how they were doing, and because he was pairing it up with his D7, I think you were.
Yeah, I used him on the D7 Miracle Worker Flight Deck Carrier. And between the 2 hangar bays, I got 150k DPS from the Valkyries. And that was only boosting them with SAD and the Swarmer Matrix console. That's all I used to boost them. I did not use Scramble Fighters. I think Scramble Fighters is too expensive, and none of the other traits. I didn't even use Independent Wingmate because that's been too buggy to use.
Well, here's the real question, though. Let's get to the real stuff. Did you use Flight of the Valkyries for that video? Because
No, but that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
I mean, yeah,
That's
those
the sound
things.
of Spencer pulling down his video to re-edit some music into it.
Pretty
No,
much.
I look forward to see what next year brings. But having said that, we're there was another thing I was gonna say, the lockbox thing, but I was just not really interested in the lockbox. So I'm not sure if anyone wanted to talk about the lockbox before getting into the board subject.
So really with this lockbox, there's only 3 things in it total that are worth mentioning at all. The ship itself is underwhelming. It's another pilot raider, but the console on it is currently broken. It's not working as intended, and if you really dive into like hull capacity and stuff, you can make it hit on larger targets for upwards of like 100 million. But that requires you to heavily build into it and to be using it against a really big target that has a lot of shield capacity. So that'll be fixed. The console itself from the lockbox, the Micro Dark Matter Anomaly, that's actually a solid EPG console. It's also gotten quite cheap. And then there's the Independent Wingmate space trait. That provides a very large boost to a single pet on your ship. And it's a neat idea, but it doesn't scale up with multiple hangar bays. It did with a bug, but if you have 2 hangar bays and each one's got, 6 fighter squadrons in it, that's a total of 12 fighter squadrons on your build, and only one of them is getting the damage boost from that trait. So that trait works better with frigates, but the issue is it's bugged and not always working right now. But people are still going nuts for it. That trait's like over 100 million EC right now. It's absolutely insane with how much people are spending for that.
How much of a DPS increase is that for that trait?
If you use it with frigates, it will basically double one of the frigates' damage. So if you use it with like the Romulan drone ships, if there's 2 Romulan drones per bay, and one of them is going to do as much damage as 2 of them would, basically. So it's a substantial boost, but it's only boosting 1 pet from a single bay. It's
So it's a 50%. If you have one hangar bay with like 2 frigates, it's a 50% boost. But if you have like a squadron of from 2 hangar bays, then yeah, it's 1 out of 12. So what's that, 8%?
Yeah, I'll put a picture of it in the call here, but it's the damage boost on it is 200% Cat 2 damage boost for that pet, and plus 200 resistance. It's a solid trait. It's just that it doesn't scale for multiple hangar bays, which is going to limit it for actual carriers. If it worked for 1 pet from each bay, it would be more valuable.
So it's only really valuable for like the scimitar and the sticks, but the tarantula maybe.
Yeah, you want to use it with frigates. I don't think it's worth using with fighter squadrons. But everyone's going nuts for it, and I think people are buying it that are not really going to get that large of a bonus from it.
Clearly, it was made for the Cheshire. I mean, honestly,
Yeah. It's really made for frigates.
Yeah, no, I think the going back to what I said earlier in terms of gameplay, just the way that people play this game, they're not going to please everyone. They're really not. And you said it already, Spencer, the people that chase the DPS, these performance things. It is fun to do. It's fun to, I learn from you guys, right? And then I just kind of apply to the way that I play, but it's just not a huge sort of community. And you said it's like 10% of the player base, if that try to chase the deeps, and even it sounds like even less now.
I would say that
it's chase
one
the
out of
min-max.
every
Everybody chases
Min-max.
the deeps.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone chases the deeps in some way or another. That's just the nature of the game. But it's probably like 1 out of every 5 to 10 people that play this game that will actually want to optimize their build a bit further, learn about keybinds, and then of that small percent of the game, there's only a very small fraction of that will go out and actually try to compete high up on the table.
So having said that,
This
the
is
question
actually.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that is actually kind of really strange. The proportions that you're talking about there. I mean, we
Probably
all
not
have
accurate.
experience. Yeah, I think because we all have experience with other games, right? And we know that people like to min max. That's just gamers. That's what we are, right? So I would assume that the percentage of the player base that probably wants to increase their damage or do better numbers or whatnot is probably significantly higher. But there is limiting factors, and
It's expensive though in this game. That's the problem. It's extremely expensive. My Norway build, if you wanted to go out and just put that together overnight, you would spend $1,000. I mean, it's insane. New World, all these other games I'm playing, it's free. It's free to min max. You play the game, you get rewards, all that kind of thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Well, no, you're actually very accurate because I was just about to say that the limitations include the price of entry, and there's more to it. There's actually access to the information, the knowledge out there, because there is it's very obtuse game, right? We kind of have to figure it out ourselves, and it helps to have the knowledge of those who've gone before us to to actually there's like years and years and years of like research into this stuff. Like Tom Agrisol, Spencer remembers him. This guy like was one of the original DPSers. He used to print out the combat log. This was before we had a parser. Like literally print out the combat log and go through it, to figure out what was going on. But I'm guessing that most of the players do not have access to that knowledge, which is probably why we don't see a bigger number of DPS chasers out there. Then
I
there's the
would
landmines as
have.
well. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. I would add maybe two other factors. One is, you can independently get your DPS up, but if you want to compete on the tables, that's going to require a team effort. So it's not necessarily something you can do on your own. And we see that with other games like WoW, where if you wanted to be world first rating or whatever, there's just a limited number of groups of people who can even compete at that level. I'm not comparing the two, but when you have to be, when it's not just you but you also have to be on a team. And then also I think Stowe just has, I have no evidence for this, has an unusual demographic. I think they skew older. I think that there was that comment when Gearbox took over or whatever, and they were putting out these statements that the majority of the player base, I don't know how they got this information. Stowe is the only game they play, and so you get the feeling like someone said earlier, oh, we're all gamers, we play other games. I don't know that's true for a lot of the people who play Stowe. This might be their one game they play because Star Trek got them into it, and they're like 50 and they're not really gamers. So I think there could be something to that too, that this just isn't a normal population of gamers.
I will agree with
agree with
that, but
that.
I don't
Yep.
think that number of people is that large. The game, actually, the number of people that play the game isn't that huge, to be honest, right?
That's
So
what, half of us just right here.
if you're talking about PvPers, you might be right. And Ares is probably going to kill me now. Sorry, Ares.
There are more PvPers than there are people chasing min-max DPS and record setting.
Oof. All right. Yeah, that's
rough.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But the
We used to
requirement for that is so high now.
It is.
It's not just one ship that you're knitting out. You're knitting out, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, when you guys are going through a quote unquote cycle, you're knitting out like 4 ships, and you only have like one DPS ship, and the rest are like support ships because you guys are taking like cycles, and it's not, like I said, knitting out the one now, it's knitting out traits, consoles, DOFs for 3 other builds, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's at the end of the day, yeah. When you look at the account of somebody that consistently does the high-end PvE runs, they're going to have, a dedicated tank character, a dedicated support character. It is a significant investment, which is a huge barrier as to why people are not heavily involved in the current state of the high-end DPS chase, because if you can't afford to go in and make like supports and that, you're going to have a really hard time getting into one of the few groups that does those types of runs. Because if people are going to sit there and spend a ton of time and their resources boosting you up, they're wanting you to return the favor. And a lot of people are over time able to set up a DPS build, but then going through and setting up also a tank or support character with the build for that can get really expensive, and it does limit who can consistently be involved in that part of the scene.
And here's an easy thing they can do. Doesn't, just feedback, right? Give them the feedback. They can act on it, do it in 5 minutes. Remove the stupid 30-minute cooldown. The reason why you have to have all these different characters is because you run it on one character, you got to wait 30 minutes to run it again. it's a lot easier to have a DPS build, a tank build, a support build on one character than to have it on multiple characters when you start talking about, you know, single unlock traits and stuff. So, and just in general, it would make it more inviting for people to go DPS chasing. I don't know why they don't do that. It'd be a simple, easy thing to do. No one would complain about it, and the DPS people would be happy with it.
Well,
They'd make less money because and that's I
make
think the second part of it is the monetization model of the game is atrocious. You know, lockbox ships only on one character. You know, I mean, I have lockbox ships on. I have 2 support tunes and a tank tune as well as my main DPS and some other, you know, science tunes, blah 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 blah. But there's, you know, there's lockbox ships that I have on, you know, multiple characters in order to make sure those are up to par so I can return that favor when I run. And I agree that would be nice, and that would, you know, make, you know, it a lot easier for us to be able to, I mean, really what we're saying at the end of the day is to make it cheaper, right? I don't see them doing that because that's less money for them.
I think I might disagree there. I think they could. There is a path to making more money. And this one solution I have in my head here. You asked Triz. You asked me a question the last time we were doing this thing. You asked me about doing builds where, you know, if you place any random 4 traits in there, would, you know, should those be viable? If they balance the game in a way where the traits and the consoles that come with ships, both C-Store and the premium ships and stuff, were more balanced, more normalized with each other, then the cost of entering and playing is reduced for the player significantly, because you don't, you don't have to splurge on like $1,000 for a build. You can probably get an effective build with, you know, just $100 or so. So, but there is volume there because you have significantly more players now that now have access. So there's a volume of inflow of cash there. But the condition is that everything is balanced, right?
And
Or
I agree with what you're saying, the sentiment, and I think that makes sense, and I agree with it 100%. And what I was pointing out is that internally they don't think like that. You know, like we were talking about drops. Having more people viewing the game on Twitch would create more logins, and more logins would translate into more transactions. You know, but there's a disconnect between, you know, what you're saying, what I'm saying about, you know, drops, and the people that run the game. They don't see that connection between, they could make more money and make us happy. You know, I mean, there's a win-win, and that I think is the most frustrating about all of this. You know,
I think you have to view this game like a gotcha, you know, almost like a mobile game in terms of the way they monetize it. Like they don't, well, not even like, you know, a lot of those games will go hard on player churn and advertising. But like, yeah, they're not going to, you know, to your point, you say, well, if you make it more accessible, you get more people, even though each one's spending less money overall, they're spending more. That would require a huge influx of new players. They're not interested in that, right? They just seem to want to milk the whales that they have. They're looking to get more money out of fewer players, not, you know, smaller amounts of money from more players. They don't advertise, they don't do any of those sorts of things. And I just I think it could work in a universe where they had a different strategy for the game, but I think their monetization model is just I think what we're more likely to see is for things to get more expensive and less accessible, so they can try and get even more money out of those fewer and fewer people who are still willing to pay whatever price.
what do you think about the shift they've made towards like some of the MUDs bundles? I know I mean, they're expensive, but relatively speaking, you know, they're a much better value in my opinion. Do you think that's a good move or a bad move?
I think that it's a way of moving product that they can't sell anymore, because you'll notice they never put new ships in there, right?
Yeah.
And it's always older ones. And so I think really they look at their metrics and they say, okay, the kind of people who pay $300 for a gamble ship have either bought it or they haven't by now. And so it's a way of, it's sort of like an outlet mall, right? Where
Yeah.
you're not, so it's just sort of like, well, okay, well, we can still find a way to find a new audience to sell it to
Yeah.
within the game.
And that's
So
probably
yeah,
me, because like I'm never gonna buy keys to open boxes to buy a ship. It's too expensive. I don't like gambling personally. Like I don't have a problem with it. I just don't like to do it. But I've bought I think probably 2 of those because I look at what it would cost me to gamble and maybe not even get it with what I budgeted. But it made sense for me with a couple of them, and part of that is because we do the high end runs, and I need multiple characters that have this particular lockbox ship. It's all relative though, right? Because we're talking about value, but that's a matter of perspective. I mean, it's overpriced, it's super expensive, but it's cheaper than if I would have gambled for it, right? They got me.
Um, so
Like a
just
gacha?
They,
Go ahead, Spencer. I'm sorry.
like terrible. They have put some more popular, like newer ships in 1 or 2 cases. The Dalkina in the current one's an example of that, but I guess that is almost 2 years old at this point, so it's not too new. But what they do when they put a ship like that that's more popular, like for the high end stuff, is the rest of the bundle will be terrible ships. Like the Dalkina bundle has 3 other ships in it that are fairly mediocre. The Sarcophagus is like the second best option in there, and that's only for a couple use cases. The bug ship is worthless now that the legendary's there, and then the crossfield, that's the original one. It's not the refit. There's a legendary version of it in the 10th bundle. The Vaudouar Juggernaut bundle also is full of ships that most people just don't care about, and people would only get it for the one ship.
oh yeah, it seems to be pretty deliberate, which is kind of funny because we also talk about how kind of incompetent they are sometimes at knowing the balance stuff and everything. So for them to even be aware,
Yeah.
which ships are the good ones, quote unquote, for people. Um, yeah, it's pretty funny. I don't know if we're allowed to uh, address people in the comments. But Dwayne has brought up here a few times, fix the dill sync, fix the dill X, um, and I think talking about where Cryptic's mindset is, what their vision is for the game, going after whales versus going for mass population. Um, it seems pretty evident to me, you know, someone says fix the Dilex. I don't necessarily know, not to put words in their mouth, that they want literally the Dilex to be fixed. Rather, what the more abstract sentiment is, as a person playing the game, I would like a way to play the game and have that translate into progress, meaningful progress. And when a lot of meaningful progress is paywalled and playing the game doesn't give you access to that, it feels bad. And I think their solution to that, even though they won't say it because they're terrible at communicating, is, well, we have the event campaign. We have events 3 times a year where we give out a free ship. They've been doing a 4th one. And I think that, they would say, listen, we're never going to give you premium currency for playing the game. We don't care about that. What we want is for you to do the events so we can get our metrics. And then we'll just give you something in exchange, like a ship coupon or whatever. So there are ways to get stuff by playing the game, but you got to do it through events.
So you said this game is like a gacha. It's not like a gacha.
Well, that's
It is a
true.
gacha.
Fundamentally, it's not like a gacha, but I think in terms of like,
It is very much a gacha. It is.
Yeah, the gambling and the whaling, I think those parts of it. But there are a lot of ways where it's not like a gacha.
There's one thing I know that Cryptic is and has always been like the high ups, the high muckety mucks, the ones that make the real decisions in Cryptic have always been very, very, very conservative. They don't like to take risks and they do not like to spend money at all. And the problem, quote unquote, problem with getting new players, getting a whole influx of new players, is that the servers that they currently have cannot handle it. They have the capacity to what is basically to handle the stuff from Neverwinter and possibly some peaks in STO when everyone logs in for new content, and that's about it. If we get a whole bunch of new players, it means they have to spend more money to get more server, more capacity, more bandwidth, which they will not do,
We
which they
could
have
pitch.
never
We could
done.
pitch together and get him a second Raspberry Pi if that will help.
That would actually help a lot for some of the servers. Like some of the time it spins up some of the maps or something like when you're swapping maps and shit. It's just yeah, but especially if this is actually if you make a new character and you play through the content, some of the old maps and stuff, the missions and stuff, you'll notice it takes some time for some of the maps to load, and that's not an issue on your end, on your your computer playing. It is the map, basically the server where the map resides, spinning up. And it takes time for it to spin up and load the map and load you onto the map. So, and if you're playing leveling a character, it is noticeable. It is very, very noticeable. For every mission, you have to wait like 2, 3, up to 5 minutes for the freaking map to load. It gets noticeable after a while.
Like the old school graphic of the two files, and then the papers flying in between.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I think for there are definitely a lot of um, issues here, and I think again there's going to be different ways of people playing Star Trek Online to the what their end game is. Like I said, someone's end game is literally just logging on every 2-3 months when they have a new mission. Having said that, someone mentioned in the chat earlier, more missions. I said this before in the last discussion. I would love to have more missions. They don't need to have voiceovers because I miss the days when the Iconian arc was just like what almost every month it felt like, or every 2 weeks or something. It felt like a mission was going out, and they were wonderful. They were really good missions. There was no top-notch voice actors there. It was just continuous story progression, and I think with the mention of newer players coming in, with all this new Star Trek, I said this before as well. I don't want them to bungle up making Stowe new player friendly, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, it could be getting the next hero ship. If someone was a strange lower decks, if someone was a Cerritos fan, right? That ship is a lockbox ship or an event campaign. So they have to wait either 1 year or spend money to get it. I said this before, it would be nice if they would have options of just giving us a lower tier skin of that. Because some people just want to collect the skin, or the ship itself. They don't have to, have all the bells and whistles. I wouldn't need to. I wouldn't have bought the Cerritos if I had an option to get a tier 5. Heck, I'll even take a tier 4 and I'll still have fun with it, but this game does have to make money. And again, another comment there, the Dilla sync is working as intended. Well, yeah, they're not in a hurry to quote unquote fix it because it's making them money, and it's making people who are using the DLX to stay on longer, to grind resources longer, so that they can get the Zen to get the ships or keys or whatever have you. So I feel that they have to come up with more ways of getting ships. Now, when you ask that question, mixed out about the MUDs bundle or the MUD store, there's nothing in the MUD store to me other than that one little hot second. Then I was thinking about the Kelvin timeline bundle, but I already have all those ships on one character. I don't need to have multiple ships on different characters,
Yeah.
you know, and for me, it's not worth it. For me, a lot of the items there, and God said this, yeah, it's a way to sell older items that they gave out to free. Oh, hey, we can make money off of this. So I find no value in anything in the Mudsurf for me personally. I did buy the Geordie Boff, but I wanted it, so you know I had the extra then. I got it, but other than that, I don't. I think they kind of also need to put some items in the Dilithium store. I don't know how it looks like, not just shields, not just FOMOs, like just put something in the deal. Like I don't know why it's not that easy. They say it's not as easy. I'm like, why not? You guys just put shields there, here and there, so I don't see why not.
They would have to make new stuff for that. Because again, I think with the narrow-mindedness of the monetization model, they're not going to take things generally that you would have to pay for and put them there.
Yeah. No, I really was hoping that this year would be an indication of how things are going to look next year. And I have a very, I don't say negative look on it, but which is going to bring us to this meat of the discussion, of course, with Bordicus leaving. So we've already talked about the game mechanics of certain things in here and there. I'm going to let you guys go off on it before I put my thoughts out there. So um, we're going to talk about Bordicus's like sudden leaving. Like his tweet was literally like,
The day
I'm
after.
done. Peace.
Yeah.
Like I'm later. So I would love to hear your guys' initial reaction and what you thought, starting with Mr. Spencer.
Good.
Well, that was short and sweet.
No. It's Aborticus did a lot of good things for us over the years. Not everything was perfect, okay? Like he clearly has not played the game in a very long time, doesn't understand the meta, which is really bad for the person who is the lead person designing all of the new things. Him not understanding basics of how people build ships in the current state of the game, how people play it, really did limit what Cryptic could do for things. But you have to also keep in mind that Bordicus did do some positive things for the community. The notable one is the specialization revamps. So Command in 2021, Intel in 2022, and it was looking like he was going to do a pilot revamp next year to make those abilities much better for us to use on our builds. And with him leaving the team, it's very likely that pilot revamp is not going to happen because he was doing that in his free time because they were not being scheduled development time to go through and do that. Now, Bordicus was the one also in charge of doing ship design, so the stats of ships, their console layout, bridge officer setup, weapon setup, stuff like that, the traits they had, the consoles they had, and there was a lot of stagnation. People brought up with the Seneca trait we just got. It's almost a direct copy of the Starship trait off of the support carriers from back in 2020. Almost a direct copy of that trait. And there's also been some ideas from him in the past year that just weren't good. Like all of the focus on the shield healing stuff on all these traits and consoles. So him moving off of the Stowe team means that somebody else is going to be in charge of that stuff, and we may start to see some new ideas moving forward. However, this change, him leaving the team, was not a sudden thing. I think they've been preparing for this for a while. He's talked about on all the recent 10 forwards that he's been doing ship after ship for months now. So I think every ship that we still get for the next half year or so is still going to have been designed by him. But hopefully, by the middle to later part of next year, we start to see some new designs, some new ideas for traits and all that from whoever takes his spot. And they did immediately have a replacement lined up for him internally, from what I understand. So they're not like hiring anybody. They just shifted somebody around internally. I talked a lot there. Big stud.
Yeah, so that was surprising because when I saw the tweet, I think it was he announced on the 24th, and I think it was on the 25th, or I'm sorry, the 4th that he would be leaving, and I think I saw it on the 5th, and I think it was posted like that day. It was like, hey, I'm gone. So that was surprising. I'm not super familiar with him. I mean, I've seen him on the streams. I know what he does. You know, and I know he had put in a lot of his personal time on the revamp on the specializations. Like Spencer said, and that's cool. And I know that I know Goss had some strong feelings about that, which I also agreed with, you know, and it was more about the company. And I guess, I mean, before I go any farther, you know, just so we're clear, I think most of the people that work on the team love the game and what it is, even though they don't necessarily play it like we do. But I mean, you look at someone like Thomas, like he is passionate about doing good work and, you know, these designs and the way these ships look. And I think that, you know, whether they do a good job in our opinions or not, mechanically speaking, on, you know, the way it actually works in the game, I think most of these people there take pride in it and are proud of it. I mean, this, you know, Bordic has been there for what, 10 years? I mean, that's a decade. You know, you don't stay, you know, doing something unless, you know, you're passionate about it and stuff. That doesn't speak to, again, whether or not it was always a great job, but, you know, to a certain degree, that's just a matter of people's opinions and how you play the game. But, you know, so with him, I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think that, you know, we come across a lot of times in these casts is very negative, and it's not necessarily, these people are working in the confines of what the CEOs and the people that run, you know, this, they give them a certain amount of man hours, budgets, and, you know, the amount of people, you know, that they can work. What's concerning to me about this is that we continually hear about, we can't do this, we can't do that because we don't have the staff to do that. Now the staff is getting even smaller. And it's continuing to shrink. And at what point does it stop, or does it get bigger? I don't see it getting bigger again. Not if the people that are in charge and whoever, and I don't even know who's in charge. I mean, who makes the final decisions on whether or not they do something or don't? You know, I'd like to see that person replaced, if I'm being honest. But you know, so that's my concern, is that reasoning is used a lot of the time to deflect, you know, questions from the community. And so, you know, and Kale says that a lot, and I know it's not up to Kale whatsoever, but it's like, you know, we were asking last week for this and you said you didn't have enough people. Now we're asking, you know, what about this? And in the meanwhile, you're, you know, not him, but, you know, they're continuing to scale the team down more and more. So it's like, we have this problem. This is why we can't do a lot of things. And we're also actively making that problem worse that we keep referencing. So that's a concern for me, you know, in the long/short term of the game. I mean, where does that stop, and what additionally does that, you know, do to the capability for, you know, fixing bugs, adding things, whatever it may be. As for his replacement, I don't know who this is, or, you know, what their experience with the game is, and my concern there is if it's someone that has worked under him for a decade or half a decade. Are we going to see a lot of change regardless, even when they come up designing ships, because they've been working under this leadership for a long time? I would have been a lot more, I would say enthusiastic, but, you know, positive, you know, thinking about it going forward. If they had, you know, brought in somebody from the outside, someone new, fresh, that was going to take on this team and, you know, continue the work, and, you know, we would get a different, you know, kind of a spin on things from someone that hasn't worked in that same office doing those same things on and on. If they're just bringing the next person up in line, I highly doubt we'll see much of any kind of changes even after the run of ships, you know, come out. And they're not all bad. I mean, you know, the Norway's a good ship, you know, so there is good ones that come out. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm concerned with the continued reduction in the staffing on the STO team.
Yeah, no, yeah. Goss?
Yeah, let me just start by agreeing with that point. You know, Spencer said they had someone else lined up internally. You know, does that mean that person's getting a promotion or a title change or whatever? But then, okay, so Bordicus is being replaced in a sense, but is that person who's moving up going to be replaced? Probably not, right? So they're still down a person. We assume, because they're not, hiring. Well, we would know if they start putting up a job opening. So yeah, it is just attrition. It's still at Cryptic Studios, presumably. But you look at the reaction on Reddit and stuff, people just the idea that they might be starting a new game and doing another Magic the Gathering terrifies people. What does that say when the audience for one of your games is terrified at the idea that you might be making a new one? Not a lot of faith, right? And I don't envy anyone who has to take over because there's so many ships and so many traits and everything in the game right now that how could you possibly, you know, of course we're going to see stuff that's samey or looks like a repeat or whatever. A lot of stuff just feels like, okay, it does some damage and there's a purple blob on the screen or something. And to defend Bordicus a little bit, I don't care when he got made like cheeky comments on Twitter because he was being attacked, or perceived to be attacked. That's just a human reaction. You're going to want to defend yourself. So some of the stuff he said was unprofessional, but it's understandable. Some of it. And also, the unpaid labor stuff. He should have been paid for that. Now, if he went into it knowing that he was never going to get paid for it, I mean, that's his choice. But the fact that he even felt like he had to do that in order to do stuff that was objectively good for the game, it does reflect poorly on the management there for not giving him the time or resources or whatever to do it on the clock. So just saying that all up front to be like, it's not just all negative on board because he's a human being and deserves, respect just on that level. But man, I do think he was incompetent at his job, doing it for 10 years. And I think it's also part of the culture there because Kale is the same way, right? I don't want this to be a side thing on Kale, but like, even if no more is expected of Kale than what he's doing, at some point he's going to have a different job for whatever reason. Okay. And his job is public facing. He puts so little effort into the communication he puts out, even if he's not being made to do a better job. If I was looking him up to hire him for another job, and I looked and said, well, what did the community you were a community manager for at your last game think of you? Oh, dear God, what was your output look like? Because it's all publicly available. It's full of typos. It's all poorly edited, right? The only reason I bring that up is because you'll see a lot of backlash against Kale, not so much against Bordicus. But for Bordicus, it was the same thing. It was just harder to notice because he wasn't as public facing. He was the lead system designer or whatever his exact title was. He really gave me the impression that he did not understand how the game works. And in all those years, 10 years, he never bothered to figure it out. Like just even on a technical mathematical level, it just did not seem to me that he even understood how the game works. How can you be a system designer if you don't know how your game works? And how many times do we see stuff come out where it's like, oh, this is super powerful. And then it's like, a pop gun or whatever. Or you get the Agony redistributor. All this stuff is layered. So many times tonight, we're talking about things and it kind of feeds back into the whole Bordicus thing. And it's like, well, it was never properly tested, didn't really have an understanding of the math in terms of how these things interact with each other or how the game works, the game engine works or whatever. That's his job. And it's never really seemed to me like he had any interest in learning his job. So yeah, hopefully the next person will take it a little bit more seriously. So yeah, that's my feeling on it. I think it's a good thing for the game that he's gone. Hopefully the next person will do a better job, but I don't hold it against him personally. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Sark?
I was just having a coughing fit. Give me a sec.
I did want to just mention something on the topic of who might be replacing on the team. Jesse Heinig has been working between the content and systems team for a while, so they may just shift him more over towards the systems side of things.
All right. Time to be a bit fair here. Jeremy Bordigas is actually a really great guy. He started out just like us, just a content creator, doing a cast as well. He went over to Cryptic and got a job there. So obviously, he knew enough to actually work there. Got on the job training, and he was a very hard worker there. Sorry, my throat is a little bit rough at the moment. I just had a little bit of a coughing fit, so I apologize. I'll try to get through it. Um, he is a really hard worker, and it showed back in the day, back in what was it, 2015, when we had the command ship lag, the pay to lag incident. I don't know if you guys remember that. When we already had lag in the game, and then the command ships were released, and it turned the game into dubstep, basically. It was really, really bad. In any event, he spent a lot of time, months of time, working on fixing the lag from back then. So big kudos to him for that. He has put in a lot of hours into this game. And without him, we probably wouldn't be talking about the game here today. So let's be fair to Borticus. Um, that being said, he is a hard worker, probably not the smartest worker. He's a smart guy. Let's not put him down in that regards. But in regards to um, designing things, balancing things, it was a little bit haphazard, a little bit chaotic, even a little bit all over the place. Uh, he did design quite a lot of systems, and he did get feedback from us. I remember back then, before the command was even released, he asked us, and the community manager from back then asked a bunch of us from the TPS channels to actually test out the command spec before it was released. So they gave us access to it on Tribble, and we even had our own section in the forums where we could give feedback to the devs after we tested it out. So yeah, they did reach out to us, and we did test the stuff for them and give them the feedback. In fact, Spencer, one of our friends, uh, had a particularly nasty comment review in regards to call emergency artillery and other things to port. Call emergency artillery back then, and up until the point that port fixed it recently. What was it, last year, 2021?
Yeah.
Was in a state that you could not kill a swarmer pet. You know what a swarmer pet is? It is the weakest pet, hanger pet in the game. You sneeze at it, it pops. Call Emergency Artillery 3 would not even scrape the paint off of it. It was that bad. And we told them that, basically. Some of us more professionally, of course, we tried to give some good feedback. Our friend Spencer, our friend there, was not. But anyways, that's a different thing. So yeah, they asked for our feedback. They didn't always listen to it, or they never actually listen to our feedback. And then they say that we don't give them feedback. So it's probably we don't give them the feedback that they wanted. Maybe they wanted us to tell them, "Hey, look, it's great," but yeah, that didn't quite happen. In any event, I look forward to seeing what comes to STO next, and I really wish Borticus well in whatever endeavor he's going on to next time. And I hope he gets treated a little bit better over there than he did here. And I must I'll confess, I'm probably one of the first ones that should probably apologize for some of the particularly mean things I might have said about him in the past. So, yeah. It might not actually be a Canadian sorry either. So, in any event, I hope he does well.
Just to add on
But
to that,
can we speculate, though? Sorry, go ahead, Spencer.
I was just gonna say I was gonna respond to your point of him having introduced lots of things to the game. Then, yeah, the Stow would not be like it is now without him. It may not have still been around had it not been for him there. And there was definitely a lot better communication early on, but post Delta Rising, it feels like they just really withdrew from a lot of that type of communication and involvement with the community.
Can I add something real quick? The and I tried to make clear, up front as well. It's we're not beating up on him or anybody else. The fact that the game is probably still around because of one guy speaks to the exact problem that all of this always comes back to, and it's the leadership of the company. It's the lack of process procedure where literally one person, can just work their butt off to keep it alive and do things at home on their own time. I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyways, I just wanted to add that in.
I also don't think much is going to change anytime soon. Like they've just basically brought in someone. Sorry, my throat. Let me clear it. They're basically my throat is really rough, and I apologize, guys.
I
But
wasn't laughing
they're
at you
basically
either,
just they're replacing him with someone internally, and the thought pattern of this game is mainly intended for the super casual, the type of player that just wants a Star Trek theme park. That type of thought inside the devs is more prevalent. It's pretty common actually. So more than likely, we're gonna get someone in the same mindset. We're not gonna get someone who's gonna buck the trend. Like I said, it's a conservative company. No one's gonna come in and flip the whole thing. Especially when if you really want to do any kind of change, you're probably gonna have to do it on your own time,
I think the person
right?
that would probably take over is the one you responded to on Reddit a month or two back about the bridge officer stuff, Sark, the STO 20th Century Fox guy. I don't remember what his name is, but I think he's the one that they've had on streams to talk about system stuff when Boardkiss wasn't available.
I am drawing a blank at the moment
The Sith
because
apprentice,
I'm
as it
old.
were.
He's got like the Futurama background when he's on the streams.
I'll look it up when. Is it the guy that did the cards, the Admiralty cards recently?
Might be.
Yes, he's the one that went through some of those changes to the fleets. It's like 4 or
The
5
fleet
weeks
changes.
ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that guy actually does know quite a bit about the game. Just a couple of times I've heard him mechanically, at least. He does seem to be aware of some metas, it seems. So he might actually be a good fit in there, possibly, maybe. But again, I still don't think that much of any change is going to happen.
Yeah.
Although I would like to do some speculation, though, if we're allowed to speculate.
Yeah, no, what I'll do is let me drop my two ECs first, but also look at that, Mr. Augie's in it. Been a hot minute, sir. So
Triz, just
I'm
you're a bit quiet.
am I quiet? Hello, test
lean
one.
lean into it.
Yeah,
Lean
to me, you're a
into
little quiet. I just want to make sure people can hear you.
it. So I mean, I did a video on it, and I think everyone said it, and I'm glad everyone said it. And of course, let's make it very 100% clear: we're not attacking him as a human being, right? Any issues that we've had has been with how sort of things have gone in game wise in that sort of, yes, Triz is a bit quiet. That's not good. I have not changed any mute settings here. I can put my mic up though. Let me see if I can do that quickly. But for me personally, I did see him first when he was doing his stoked, and I got corrected by someone saying that the I think I said his twin brother. And then they're not brothers actually, apparently. So that was my bad. But and then he went into to work for Cryptic. So for me, I didn't know a lot about the game then. I still don't know a lot about the game now, to be honest. Especially according to Spencer. Uh, joking, sort of. His demeanor at times felt like combative, and I'll go back to where he was talking about like on stream where about the new ship incoming from the event, the winter event. He literally said, if I have a chance to make a ship interesting or make an interesting ship, that is what I'll do. So he was the sole person that was in charge of that. And it just, to me, it felt there was no connection to him in terms of things that were coming out recently. He was that whole, and Spencer mentioned it. There was the shield thing that, trying to make shields great again or something. And, where I found people were playing with shields is those who watch Star Trek. Oh, I want to make a shield theme build. Have at her, and he had this list that he showed on stream. And my sort of guess is, and kind of to what Sark was saying, I don't think nothing's going to change initially because there is like this sort of record of the ships that they release and that they make sure that these ships are not similar to the last ships that they release. So they're going to have this like sort of pattern. So I feel that the next person, whoever that may be, that will take that job will probably just, for the sake of, if there's, especially what to McStud said, if they're going to not replace him necessarily, but just shift someone over, they're probably going to continue that trend of whatever's going on. I hope not, because it would be nice to see some fresh ideas come in, whatever that may be. But I was kind of talking to Spencer about this a couple times. I mean, well, what direction did you want them to go? Where everything is going to be super DPS meta? Like the next trade is going to be the next thing to replace Terran Goodbye. The next console is going to be, it's going to replace the latest or the last powerful console. I don't think that would be fun because that would then go be making things that people bought before obsolete, right? So I don't know what direction I would like to see it in, but I feel that maybe a little bit more interaction with the community in terms of people who endlessly test, like you guys, who like you're very knowledgeable of the game, and find a middle ground. What that middle ground looks like, I have no idea. But again, I think he did a great job for the decade in terms of like what you guys mentioned. He was kind of holding up the fort there. But hopefully the next person that comes in line has ideas to sort of move things forward and not keep it the same. I don't know what they could do. It goes back to what I asked apparently Sark the last podcast was, any 4 traits or any 4 consoles should just be the same as long as they perform equally. But what is that? Is that really what we're looking for? Because there's always going to be a min-max way to play, right? Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong. There's always going to be a console, always going to be a trait, always going to be a setup that is just going to be better, and that is going to be what is going to be the quote unquote meta. it would be nice if the dev would have some line of communication to I'd say to you guys, in terms of this, to give the feedback of what do quote unquote players want. But at the end of the day, I don't think the next person in line is going to make everything super DPS. So nothing wrong with that. I love destroying pixels with torpedoes with one shot, but a lot of people that I see stream Stow are very casual, like are actually casual, and you can see their power levels all balanced. And I think I saw someone I was working, just listening to their stream, saying I think someone was asking, well, you can put your more power into your weapons. Oh, but we need to be balanced because I always have to have my defense up, my shield engines, blah blah blah. And what are they thinking of? Well, they're thinking of Star Trek games, right? Or Star Trek, a balanced, sort of approach to it. But you guys and we know that's not necessarily the best way. Could they get through what they're getting through? Of course, right? Just not, just 10 seconds longer or 20 seconds, maybe God forbid, a minute longer when it comes to its abuse. And so I guess for me, Bordicus Leave, of course, good luck to him. And I have nothing but good wishes for, and good luck to what he's going to be doing. And hopefully we do find out what project he's working on, and that we find out soon who will be taking over. And I hope that dev opens a line somehow. And I think, was it you mixed up that mentioned earlier something about a survey, that is done
Yep.
in other games. I think that would be good. But I think there's also a point where the devs are kind of, I don't want to say afraid. Afraid is probably not the word I'm looking for, but they're going to open a can of worms.
Yeah,
Right?
well,
They're already
well, I mean, and this, I mean, I developed this stuff at work, and they need to come up with like yes or no questions or multiple choice answers, and not just survey us, survey a huge swath of the player base, or just randomly. So you'd have DPSers, you have all kinds of different people, and they need to come up with some questions that they need to know to improve the game, and then give choices that are within their power in order to formulate some good data is what they need. Like they do not need to send out an email, hey, tell us what you think. That is a waste of time, and that is going to be just they're only going to do that once. You know what I'm saying? When you go into warships or a lot of these other games, you're not writing a story to them. I mean, there are like in Star Citizen, you'll fill out bug reports and different things, but it's kind of in a different place. But they've formulated multiple choice questions to answer specific questions that they've developed internally in order to move the game forward. And I think it would be super helpful if they just sent that stuff out to everybody, as many people as they could get, and based on that, they don't have to go through and read it all. I mean, you just use an algorithm and it just pumps out for each question, the most, chosen answers for each one. And I mean, that would be huge, but I mean, they're completely flying blind.
I believe, yeah, no, I agree. And now again, with more responsibly shifted to less people. So what does that mean? I think someone mentioned in chat earlier there, what's going to happen with all the side projects, what's going to happen with the bug that they were fixing. They're going to continue to pump out ships the way that they do. So this is where I'm going to start speculating. Of course, you guys can chime in after. For me, I think the ships are going to stay the same. They're gonna go sort of follow that trend, because there's like this spreadsheet, unless Borges takes it, but I think that spreadsheet was passed on to him. If I remember correctly, he was saying to him it was passed on to him or whatever, and he just modified it as they went. But in terms of ship design, as much as I wanted, fresh ideas coming in, I think it's going to stay the same. And the next person in line is just going to be under pressure more to just keep pumping the ships out like he was. Because I keep going back to what Bordicus said on that one stream. If I don't make ships, we don't make money.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, well, Yeah, and it makes sense, but there's also has to be that middle ground of keeping players, right? Because if you just keep force feeding lockbox ships and whatever bad quote unquote bad content, and that could be subjective, you're gonna still push away your revenue stream away, right? So I think the next, I think Spencer, you said like the next half a year we're gonna have Borticus's fingerprints all over whatever is gonna still be, and I agree with that. So after the next event ship, I think is not the winter, but not even the anniversary, like the summer on, I think we're gonna see changes if there is any, personally. And I would just like more interaction with that. Why not stream more? Why not stream like Thomas does, like Tumor Boy does? Have a stream where, okay, you're working on your own time. Well, then you know what? You're gonna get supported. If you stream, you might get better interaction with the community. I think that would really do well for just the overall communication from the devs to the players. Yeah, Kale's there, but when he does his streams, it's like always, okay, well, let me get back to you, right? Let me write that down. Let me send an email to XYZ, right? It would just be nice if they could, while they're working it at home or whatever, because it seems like, and I was going to bring this up actually too, it seems like they're clearing all the desks because they're going to just be working from home. if I'm looking at the Twitter feeds, right, it seems like they're just clearing out all their desks and then just literally going to be working from home, right? So I just want more communication from them to us, and then have a middle ground of finding what's going to appease everyone. So that's just kind of my two ECs there. But yeah, Sark, you wanted to kind of speculate on stuff. Have at her.
So, uh, why? The question is why? Why now? Why so suddenly is he moving? Is it because we made up such a fuss about the nerves? Someone came and looked and said, "Hey, you know what? You're out of here." No, that definitely did not happen. Probably he got sick and tired of being attacked, um, after trying to put out stuff, and he's been at it for a while. I think he probably saw an opportunity. He has experience. He does have experience in making a game. Now, here's the speculation part, and this one, this is far out there, so don't. This is just me speculating here. Gearbox purchased PWE, North America, because they wanted to get more. They wanted to get into MMOs, right? They wanted some MMO experience. And there's a new Cryptic is making a new MMO game. Now, what is the most valuable license in this community of of uh of licenses that Cryptic has, that Gearbox bought? It would be Star Trek, right? So maybe we won't be, missing Bordicus too much. That's just a far out there speculation.
Stow 2, is that what you're saying,
Because
sir?
I wouldn't. You said it. I implied it. But yeah, it could be Star Trek Online 2.0 or something like that. He does have the experience with Star Trek game.
Wouldn't you think that'd be like financial suicide? Because I remember, oh, what's his name? Rivera saying that on Q stream. It would be financial suicide for them to literally make a Stow 2.
Okay, and you believe them?
I believe it. Yeah.
Thinking of the logistics, because they would be almost competing with themselves.
Well, you'd have to cancel
And
one. put it in the
You'd
maintenance
have
mode, and
to
it would go away. Yep.
Well,
exactly.
it can be done. I mean, Sony did it with Final Fantasy, so it's something that can be done.
Well, I mean, you look at all the backlash right now over Overwatch too. But I think the thing about that is the first one was like you pay an upfront cost and that's it. I know it had loot boxes and stuff, but like, you know, uh McStew earlier was saying, well, if you wanted to do my build, it'd be $1,000. They do a stow too, and they don't transfer over all that value, which of course they're not going to do.
No. Nope.
I mean, how many people are going to say, "Oh, let me just, roll on over and just forget about all this money I spent on Stowe," when that is the only sort of player base they're guaranteed to be able to pull from. I and also that Magic game was okay. It was an okay game, but it wasn't great, and the monetization turned people away. And I don't think they're gonna. I mean, they said they're doing another MMO. Is that confirmed? Because I just feel like any MMO they do, Star Trek or otherwise, will probably be suicide.
I think they probably have a bunch of engineers and stuff on loan from Gearbox. These guys want to learn and get experience, right? So they set up a joint team, and they're making a new game with that. Um, I think we're thinking too small here. I think we're thinking way, way too small. Uh, like I said, the community, the number of people that play STO is actually really pitifully small compared to a lot of other games out there, especially MMOs. It's long lasting, I'll give it that. But there are bigger markets out there. And if you can reach them, I think someone pointed out in chat that Fantasy Star Online also did. They went to 2.0. They were able to pull that off. So if they can grab a bigger market, a much bigger market than what is currently in the game, then really, when you think about it from a capitalist standpoint, then
Long term, they would
one
win.
is bigger than the other.
Yeah, I mean, because the bottom line is, at some point, it's going to go on maintenance mode and it'll be over, right? I mean, that's just going to happen at some point. And Star Trek's still going to be around, so somebody's going to make another game. That's going to happen, be it Cryptic or somebody else. But let's just hypothetically, if they, let's say they are working on a brand new stow, nothing's going to transfer. I mean, because if you did that, you're just recreating a new stow on a new engine, right? And it's the same thing. I think if they did it, it would probably be completely new. There's not going to be any transferring over. It's starting over. A ton of people would be totally pissed and say they would never play, and probably half them probably end up would playing because it would end up being the only stow. There'd be some people that are just so upset, but like Stark saying, these guys don't even advertise. Star Trek's huge. I mean, if they spent, a couple $100,000, in an advertising budget, I mean, they could, just tenfold the amount of people that play Stowe. I mean, I didn't even, know about this game until years after, it came out. Well, I take that back. My wife did buy me one, but I didn't even kind of think twice about it. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't into MMOs. And once I figured it out, though, I'm like, I'm in. And I never even played an MMO. There's probably millions of people out there that would play Star Trek Online if they knew about it, or at least, thousands, tens of thousands more. And if it were something that was brand new on a brand new engine and was good, they could easily, just relaunch a new Stowe MMO. Is there going to be people upset? Heck yeah. But like Sark said, the player base is not that big, relatively speaking, to most other games, especially most other MMOs. So, if they're looking at it just from a dollar standpoint and people, I mean, you could easily piss off all those people and still make tons of money and just order of magnitude, more people to come into, a Star Trek MMO game if they actually advertised. I mean, Stowe doesn't even advertise really. I mean, imagine if they did. So again, it's just hypothetical, but I think Sark's right in terms of the smaller. We're thinking in terms of Stowe, but instead of terms of Star Trek, and the reach that has and pulls.
I don't think
I just
there's
sorry.
gonna be.
I just
Go ahead.
wanna make just one last point here, just before I let you finish. I'm sorry. I just pulled a yay on you. Um, Even if they were making another STO game, it behooves them to fervently deny it
Mm-hmm.
because they still have a they still have a revenue stream at the moment.
You wouldn't buy another
And
thing if you knew it.
even a hint, even a hint, even a hint would be bad. So yeah, sorry, terribly sorry for cutting you off. Gauss, go ahead, please.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm bad at that too. Um, I don't think. If they do make another, I think they could be making another Star Trek game. Yeah, that maybe to replace this one, because whatever game if they're starting it now, it's going to take years. It's not like it's going to be done in a year.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be like a full-fledged MMO though, because I don't think. I think those are probably dying off. I think anyone would be a fool to start one. You look at what happened to New World. I mean, you had Amazon money behind that. They could get any engineer they want. They could get the best people, that unlimited budget, unlimited marketing. They used the Amazon affiliate program to market the hell out of that game. And it was fundamentally an okay game. And yet it still crashed pretty hard. And they had all kinds of crazy bugs and problems, and most of the player base left. And I just think that the way that gaming has gone in general, there's just so many easier, more cost effective ways of getting money out of people because it is just capitalism. MMOs are very expensive and hard to make, and the quality that has to be there to actually get people to play it and to keep playing it has to be really, really high. And I just think that, if we do see another Star Trek MMO, it's going to be a live service, of course, because that's how they monetize everything. But I don't think it's going to be anything like what we have now.
Yeah,
It's not
I
going to
agree
be
with
this
that.
full fat experience. It's going to be more like a mobile game. Well, I would imagine.
Yeah, New World on release was almost a million congruent logins, and it crashed pretty hard because of the leveling and some of the bugs. I followed them pretty close over the last year and have been playing a little bit more through the expansion. And just in their defense, they have really put work in with the community feedback and that kind of stuff to really turn that game around. And I mean, they're running at almost 200,000 congruent logins a day right now. But they cared. There was interest in making it work and grow it.
Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of my point. Like, look what it takes, though.
Right. Oh, agreed. Agreed.
And I just don't think Gearbox or Cryptic has anywhere near the resources to do something like that, or to recover. If they had a similar setback the way New World did, they would never recover from it the way Amazon was able to.
I agree with that. I mean, the game would have to be good, right? I mean, they can't just sell the Star Trek name and people are just going to come in droves. It would have to be a good game for sure, right? And I think we kind of glossed over that whole part, right? I mean, if they make an STO, 2.0, the current game is good. I mean, we're not just here for just because it's Star Trek. The game is deep. There's massive amounts of layers. I mean, you can get lost in it for years. I mean, and that's what drew me in, and that's what keeps me still playing the game is just the scope of it. And I highly doubt that I'll find many other games that have that kind of scope in any kind of genre. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, you could advertise, you could do this and that, but if the game's not good, or if it has New World kind of problems, I mean, because I could set up a YouTube, Facebook, marketing, strategy for $100,000 and touch millions of people across the world that like sci-fi and Star Trek and are 25 to 55 years old that have PCs. I mean, you can dial that in and very cheaply get in front of millions of people. Which blows me away. They don't do that right now. I don't understand. I mean, for cheap, they can get in front of people. So, I mean, they could get eyes on the game, but the game would have to be good, right? And I think that's your point. New World had unlimited budget, but they had problems with the game, and it just crashed. Compared to if it was in better shape when it came out, they could have maintained maybe 800,000, 500,000 congruent, logins a day. That number dropped massively to like 20, 30, 50,000 for quite a while there until they started making changes.
Yeah, didn't it have like some gold glitching bugs that kind of busted the economy? And then there was the non-consensual PvP. That was like really that was a
Non-consensual.
The bug there
yeah.
was
I think
there
I
was
think
there was some bugs. I mean, just like you would have anything else. The problem was some of the mechanics in the way that leveling happened. I had over 100 hours in it, and I was barely level 30. I've been playing since the expansion, 2 characters on 2 different servers for a couple days now, and I'm already at level 40 on both of them. I mean, it was bad, So a lot of us abandoned, playing because leveling up was I'd have to quit my job, So I wasn't able to casually just play the game and level up. And then the end game had some problems. They've addressed the leveling, they've addressed some of the end game stuff, and there's a very good looking roadmap, but it probably wasn't quite ready to go live, and so there were bugs, but I think that was less of an issue and more of, just kind of some of the basic design stuff. And from some of the people I followed, they were getting the feedback, guys, this is crazy. You have to change this. They didn't listen. And the game went crazy on launch, and a couple months later, what looked like it was dying. And they have addressed it now, and it's coming back, but yeah, I don't think it was quite ready to go. They needed to listen to more of the feedback and flesh it out.
my friends have been telling me about it and asking me to if I have the game, because there's new servers coming up very, very soon.
They just came up, the fresh servers, so they're brand new. I rolled a tune on them, and I'm really enjoying that. I mean, they're super busy, they're populated, you can get into dungeons right away. It's we're getting way off subject, but we can talk about it more later.
I think if they did a STO 2, I wouldn't want it in the current MMO form, because as is, STO is largely single player. I think I would want something where there's updates, you can go and buy like add-ons to get extra ships and all that, but I'd rather have just like a single player game with some online elements for like queuing for some of the TFOs or something. I don't know, between their servers just having never been good in the entire time I've played this game, and just how single player focused everything has been, I don't think I would want to play another MMO from Cryptic.
100%.
I mean, a STO 2 would be kind of. I wouldn't even know how I would react, to be honest with you, in terms of what they would do. But like everyone, like at least here, we have a lot of, if not money, time invested in STO, and I don't. I think I'd obviously try it, but man, to think to try to work on that at the beginning, it's kind of, I don't want to say overwhelming, but just man, the thought of that, and then yeah, I mean, McStud's right. Eventually, this STO is going to go, and I think that it got a life boost this last. When did the Discovery start? 4 years ago, right? On the 5th season, so 4 or 5 years ago, it got a massive, massive boost in terms of its life expectancy, because now, even if all the shows died, right, they're going to be able to pluck storylines from what we've seen so far. And that's kind of how it felt like before Discovery, right? They're just kind of pulling things from here and there, like the bluegills, right? I remember that they just kind of pull that out, and I would love to again see more improvements just done to this game. Now, advertisement wise, it's funny because when I open up my sort of pages, my browser, I actually do see still still advertising. It's Mr. Stowe guy. I see I see him with his phaser pointed out with the Excalibur behind him, but that's it. Maybe a couple ads here on YouTube. Nothing too serious.
I did get a couple, like in the second season of Discovery, like on the streaming service. There were a few that did pop up,
and they should continue to do that. I don't know why they like. I mean,
it's crazy.
More
I
so.
I just cannot understand. I mean, advertising on like YouTube ads, Facebook, all the social media stuff, it is so cheap and you can target it so well. I mean, it blows my mind.
Here's what I think
I
is
have literally never gotten an ad for Stowe ever, but I know that I'm in that target demographic you're talking about because I get ads for Star Trek Fleet Command and
Yep.
all the other Star Trek games. So it's like if they were doing it, I would have seen one by now.
Right. They're basically not. I mean, it completely just I can't understand it.
I feel that what I'm afraid of is when we will start seeing more interaction in the community, or let's say just when we get to that phase where they're going to ask us, hey, we want to make changes, blah, blah. I feel like they'll only get to that point is when their revenue stream is getting lower and lower and lower.
Right.
And
it's got to be
which
profitable.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And kind of because you guys were talking about it, New World, right? Super successful. It was backed up by Amazon. And then all of a sudden, the drop was real, so much so that I was actually listening to content creators talking about the drop of Amazon, New World. And then all of a sudden, now I'm hearing all these changes that they've been making, which is for the good, which is for the positive. And that's because people kept leaving the game, right? Again, you're always going to have your hardcore Stowe players, but that's why I keep going back to the point of finding a middle ground to retain players and not always stuff ships down our throats. Give us good TFOs, give us, and not, they don't have to be time gated. Give us
I want
stores,
good
rewards, and not make it. I like these, and Nick talks about this too a lot, and so do you, Mixed. When it comes to Star Wars, I think you said it even earlier. You don't actually pay for performance. You pay for looking good.
Almost all the other MMOs I play are that way. Like you don't pay to, let's call it winning. I mean, because you got to do DPS in this game, right? I mean, it's or for the skin you want. I guess at least that part is similar. But I mean, New World, ESO, even games like tanks and stuff, there are premium stuff you can buy, but you don't have to. I mean, like you can get like clan battle stuff. Like you can't buy that top tier stuff. It has to be earned through game. This is the only MMO that I play where like I have to buy things that affect how good I am in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Would that be a possible shift that they could do?
Maybe
that is what Stowe 2 is going to be, right? Like a Star Wars, not like Star Wars, but you know what I mean, where you're not buying performance, but you're buying your.
I think someday there will be another one. I doubt it'll be Cryptic. It'll probably be someone else. Like I think Ubisoft is making a MMO for Star Wars. It's years out. There was just like initial announcement. There's no like details. I think the speculation is it's 3, 5, 6 years. I mean it's out there. So eventually SOTOR will wind down, and a whole nother company is in the middle of doing development for it. And I think the same thing at some point will happen with Star Trek Online. And I'm assuming it's not going to be Cryptic. I just can't see that happening. And Cryptic couldn't start Stowe today the way that it is like now, and people buy in, because when this game went free to play, that was the hotness, right? Going, I can play for free, but there's all these microtransactions and gambling. That's less prevalent with newer games that are coming out. I mean, some of those aspects are there, but not egregiously like this. So, I mean, if Cryptic made Stowe today in its current form, people wouldn't. We're savvy enough to that where people wouldn't get vested in that kind of a trap anymore. At least not to the extent I feel like did back in 2012 and around that time.
Well, you're right. I mean, that's what happened with the Magic game. People took a look at it. Was basically, it's funny because if you're a Stowe player, you could look at the market. I don't know if you guys tried the Magic game. It was a very similar correlation, like Zen to whatever their currency was, and you could just see how they just kind of copied it over, and people rejected it hard.
Yep.
Because they weren't bought into it. It was being presented as a new thing, and it failed.
New World, I paid
Yeah, I
$49
remember
for
that.
it. I don't have to pay anything else. And the other games I play, they're subscription based if I want them to be. I mean, I can play most of them for free, but I'm okay with paying $15 a month for a game that I like. And granted, there is cosmetic stuff and different things like that, but I also get the stipends and stuff. So I mean, the models have just changed, and what gamers and people in general are going to accept. We won't accept a 2012 model like that kind of thing did not last long, and the only reason it has in Stowe is because it's Star Trek, and that's really it. And once you get vested in it, it's hard to just say that I'm done, or even consider the fact there might be something else down the road at some point. But the nature of the monetization, that's over. It's just a relic that's still around in Stowe. I mean, they couldn't resell that, just like you guys said in Magic the Gathering.
Here's one for you then. What type of what do you think will happen to Stowe in this new MMO? Which I don't think this new one's Stowe 2.
Yeah, I don't either.
But let's say it's another like Magic situation where they try to push out this model that they use for Stowe and Neverwinter, and it fails. How does that impact Stowe?
I'm gonna actually just answer PC's question because actually Mustad did. I would rather a sub, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because it would be a supporting thing. I came in free to play, but um, to your question there, Spence, how would it affect Stowe? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
asking? If they did a Stowe 2?
Like another Magic situation where they do a completely new MMO and then it fails because the model just doesn't work in the market anymore.
I mean, again, Stowe would be the niche of the niche still. It's still a niche now. So I don't think it would. Obviously, people would try it, hate it, and then would just come back and they'd be like, "Yep, I'm."
But could it
staying
fail
here."
hard enough to cause enough financial problems? I think is the concern. And the other thing too with Gearbox didn't just buy a company and say, "Hey, do whatever you guys want." So I'm assuming there's some input, there's some guardrails there, to where I'm sure they're fully aware of Magic the Gathering and what happened there. And I would assume that the people that just spent millions of dollars on Cryptic Studios would have something to say about how that whatever this new game is being formulated. I mean, the games that, like some of the games that they have, like what's some of the ones under development that's owned by Gearbox is like Homeworld and stuff. Those are awesome games. They're different. They're not MMOs exactly and stuff, but I gotta believe that there's some of those mistakes I don't want to say can't, but there's got to be input and influence from Gearbox and the people that are now managing Cryptic Studios from the Gearbox side of things. They're gonna say, you guys aren't doing another, Magic the Gathering. Like those things didn't work,
That would be an example of them probably with what they don't want to do. So I think that having had happened already, hopefully they're not going to even try it. That would be. But I would like to actually experience a Stowe the way you guys talk about Star Wars. I would like to experience that. I don't know how that would, still look like in a Star Trek model, because someone did mention earlier in chat, and I've said this before as well, Stowe has cornered themselves in their ships and how they monetize this game. And for them to try to pull away from that in this Stowe environment, probably not going to do well. I would like to experience a Stowe where I can just get any ship I want, and I'm going to have the performance. But if I want to change something, yeah, sure, I'll throw a couple bucks, or part as my sub or whatever. I would think that if they do it that way, if they make a different model Stowe, I think it would either mostly to me boost Stowe originally, the original Stowe, in my opinion, because they again still have all the investment and time there. New players would go to the probably the new Stowe, but we would still be here. We would still be. I would still be here.
I want to say that last thing about STO2, the decision for that ultimately lies with Paramount, right? If they want a Star Trek game, they can get a Star Trek game. So that's basically up to them.
That's a good
Um,
point, because they can't just, because they have the license for STO, that doesn't mean they can just nilly-willy go make whatever they want with it, right? I mean,
Correct. So if there is a SCO2, it would be because Paramount said, hey, I want SCO2, I want something better. I want, for example, I want the game to do this, I want this, I want that. This current game can't give us that, then, give us something else. I'm not 100% convinced there is an SCO2. It's probably something else. And would it take out STO? If they make a game and it fails, like Magic, which by the way I tried, and yes, it is basically the economy is basically a carbon copy of STO, Magic the Gathering game. Um, if they make a new game and it fails, you got to think about it. I agree with Stu above me here. Gearbox is a pretty big company, and they're pretty rich, right, to be able to afford to pick up PWE. Um, they either wouldn't let it happen, but you got to remember they did the purchase to get into the MMO thing. So they're taking a risk. They're going to try something new. They're going to come up with a new MMO. If it fails, they can just scuttle the whole thing. What does it matter to them, right?
what if
STO is self-sufficient.
what if it doesn't fail? What if it
Neverwinter, I
does
believe.
crazy good?
Then
Rip
that's
Stowe
good.
server performance.
Right. Well, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if it
Yeah.
what if it's so good that, and the profitability levels are just, in comparison to STO, what would that mean?
They're gonna
Then
go
we
where the
might get
money is.
benefits.
Yeah.
We might get benefits. Like they might require like better servers and stuff, right? So Stowe could piggyback off a server upgrade because they all use the same server, right?
I
The
think
same
actually
server group.
Stowe was moved to a new server apparently a couple months ago. I haven't seen I keep seeing people talk about it, but I haven't found any like solid posting anywhere. If someone can like find that and link it in chat for us. But apparently
Like,
Stowe was moved over to like some really basic Amazon servers. And that's why performance
okay,
has
so
been a
like a
little bit worse
location
recently.
move,
Yeah, potentially.
then you'd basically
Well,
you just have to double check the IPs of what's now and what was before if you have a record of what the previous IPs were.
Well, I can tell you
Well,
at
I think Stu's point was,
it could
sorry,
be
I didn't
bad.
mean to get you there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, for me at work, like if I'm looking at things I'm putting money into, okay, and one thing, let's say, I'm doing my marketing and I'm getting a 5% return on investment, ROI, on, X, and then I start doing something else, some new idea I had, and I'm getting like 30% on that. You know what I'm doing is I'm canceling the first one and I'm moving that investment over to continue in this other one that's giving me 30% ROI compared to the 5. So and I'm just playing devil's advocate, obviously just hypothetical, but if they did something else that was very successful, different kind of monetization model, and and they're making tons more money on that, that could be a negative thing for Stowe.
Well, and then what would happen is they would pull the staff from Stowe. To your point, they would say, well, these people are going to be more productive on this other game.
Yeah.
And then that game would get Kale as a community manager, and then things would start to go south. So you can kind of see the trajectory. And sorry,
You're not
So
sorry,
Gauss,
and that's not a Canadian sorry.
I just wanna say one thing, Gauss. And there is nowhere in his job description that requires him to be either transparent or sincere with us.
No,
Talking about
I try not to beat up on them. I know it's easy to, because I don't completely disagree with Goss's sentiment, but I really blame the company for putting their employees in these positions that they don't have what they need to be effective at what they're supposed to be doing, and it's the same. It goes back to Bordicus, is that he was left in it, getting attacked, all these, and I know that happens to a lot of different people, but they're working for a company that does not have proper procedures, processes, and it puts these guys in crappy situations, and Kale included.
Yeah, he can be very diplomatic, but he can only do so much. And he said it on one time when he was here, the only time he was here, saying, I'm a human too, so I can only take so much, right? But that again speaks to what we've all been saying, that the higher management, right? And
To be fair to Goss's point, I mean, if I'm Kale, I'm going to work somewhere else. I mean, I'm not, I'm not,
paid to.
because I mean, that sentiment is not wrong, that, some of that attitude that we get, but I'm just saying the root of that is being bred by a company culture, that's not Kale's fault or these other guys' faults. But it's still ultimately, people are responsible for themselves.
But I would like to see another thing. I'll add to what I said earlier. It would be nice. It would be nice to at least see one of Kale's builds that is energy heavy, at least have his power into weapons. Okay, being someone who is showing off. I guess his point is just showing off the ship, right? But I think it would go a long way if someone would, I don't want to say help him with his build, but essentially help him with what he's going to show. He's got all the dev tools, and then when he opens that window, it's just like, I'm okay.
Well,
Even my 2-2 layout weapon would do better.
If I had, a department that was community manager and I pulled up a stream, I would demand that, the framing around cameras are aligned and, all this other kind of basic stuff, and that's one of my biggest things when I pull up some of the streams sometimes from Cryptic Studios. I'm just like, what the F is going on here? Like that. And I think that's a place where, you could maybe fault Kale. I mean, he could put more into that, but there's also nobody demanding that of him, right? If there was, it would be fixed. And that would have only happened that one time. So it's just little things like that it's more pet peeve stuff for me. I mean, it really has nothing to do with the game and stuff, but it speaks to the that overall culture. When you're looking at some of these things, and I mean, you look at other games, and I mean, it's pro. I mean, when World of Warships does a tournament, I mean, it looks like you're watching cable TV. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they got control room, things moving around, and I understand they have a lot more money and budget and stuff, but come on, we can at least have camera frames aligned properly, and stuff. It's just always it's kind of thrown together and haphazard. It really bothers me.
Well, this is why I've said in the past that Sto is even bad at being a gambling game, because, real life casinos know you got to bamboozle them with the glitz and the glam, right? The free drinks and the girls and the lights and all the stuff, right? You got to make it enticing. And a lot of these other games understand that. You said you're getting this cable quality coverage, and they do these community events and all this, and it's like they really make you feel like you're part of this really great thing. Whereas with Sto, it's like, it seems like Kale's the only one who knows how to set up a Teams meeting, and it's just sort of, you're in a boardroom. But on that note, it's 3 a.m. here, so I'm going to go ahead and duck out of here. But I had a great time, and hopefully we can all do this again. And I'll see you guys later.
Goss, thank you, sir. I know I was about to say the time at 1 o'clock. Have a good night, Goss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Here's a janky view here, Mr. McStud. Check this out. As soon as Goss goes, check this out. Unless he stays there. His icon stays there.
I'm getting ready to fix my OBS for my recording.
No,
can you just leave it up somehow?
I mean, it's obvious that a lot of us, not just us here who stream, but even the players, other fellow captains that play this, we're very, well, geez, there you go.
There it is.
Hold on. Speaking of aligned cameras.
No, trust me.
Hold on.
I'm fixing it right now.
While I'm fixing this, though, I'm going to say, where's Spencer? Oh God, like Smith. Hold on. Okay, final thoughts on anything that we talked about. Spencer, go.
Um,
While I fix your head.
I gotta think back about the topics here. We covered Fort leaving quite in depth.
What is that? That's me.
I think most things have been covered pretty well. Other like for me, like I said, with if they ever did a Stowe 2, or even Stowe, like if Stowe ever got to a point where like Stowe was just about dead, or they were going to put it into maintenance mode, I would like to see one final development push on it to just make it so like you can just play it offline, basically turn it into a single player game. I think that if they put dev time into that, they could find ways to get revenue from Stowe long term, because I think there's enough content in here story wise and ship build wise that if you just made it a sandbox, charged people like $60 for it after the MMO part has died, I think they could sell that for years still on like Steam.
Yeah.
Because people would still want the experience of coming in, building a ship out, and playing through the content. And I think if they put the dev time into that, I don't know what all would be needed to do that. It'd obviously be a bit of an undertaking, but I think that there are ways that they could continue to get money from Stowe even after Stowe's death as an MMO.
Before we pass it on here, so while everyone's giving their final thoughts, add also for Nick's little question there, what's everyone's favorite ground tier foe? Spencer, before you pass it on to Nick's
My favorite ground TFO? Ooh, I like the Borg stuff, and I know it's not very challenging nowadays, but
and weapon, sorry.
I would say my favorite ground TFO. I think all of the Borg ground stuff is really good, so it's hard for me to say. I think there's actually some neat dynamics to those queues, and there's some teamwork elements that are needed. So that'd be my pick. And for weapon, oof. I like the split beams. Any split beam, any crafted split beam will work for me.
The mixed mapping.
I'll start with probably Brotherhood of the Sword or the Tholian ones we've been doing. I like that, and I really like running the sword. I don't really use the weapons a lot. It's just the kit modules. So the sword has a nice little role-playing aspect. Looks cool. Bother Spencer, I think. Yeah, so that's the ground stuff there for Nick. What was the other thing we were gonna say?
Just kind of final thoughts on
yeah.
anything that you want to add.
So every time we do these podcasts, and I kind of feel the way before and then after is that I feel like that they're always very kind of negative sounding, and sometimes I'm concerned, with, new players or new subs to our channels coming in and seeing it. But I think it's important, to understand, the company and stuff you're dealing with. But that aside, I mean, the game is awesome, especially if you're new. There's so much content. There's so much to do. If you like Star Trek, I mean, it's huge. We're complaining from the standpoint of people that have beat the game a million times on multiple accounts with multiple characters, and we're looking for more, right? If we put the kind of time we put in to Stowe to any other MMO, we'd probably be having very similar conversations about it, if we're being fair. Right? I mean, we've played the shit out of the game, right? I mean, literally in every which way. So, I don't want to say take what we say with a grain of salt about it, but just understand, our perspective of where we're coming from. We're looking for more where there's not really, and so it's easy to go and nitpick all these little things. Some of them are not just little things, though. I mean, some of them, especially in the monetization, side of it and things like that, are not little things. But the game itself is great. You can have years of just content, to play, and when you start to discover all these other different little systems and things that are in the game, it's a lot of fun. There's a reason we all still play it, even though, most of us, even though we sit here and we're, I don't want to call it complaining, because I think I think it's constructive criticism, really. Sark's on break at the moment, but, I mean, I think he's got 5-6 years on me prior to me even starting, coming into play and stuff, so it is a good game. The community is excellent. We have honest discussions like we're having now. So if you are someone that's newer and stuff, don't be discouraged by what, we're saying. And Sto has a long time, but I think it's important for everybody to understand, especially the monetization stuff, the communication stuff. They need to hear from us when those kinds of things happen, like with the nerfs. I hate saying that, like with the nerfs. It has nothing to do with the nerfs. It has to do with selling me items that were not as advertised, and in knowingly doing that. And those are the things that they need our feedback on, and let them know it's not acceptable. Because if we do that, they will stop. It's not that the customer is always right. It's just the customer's got the money, right? And so that's really what talks at the end of the day. So if you can take anything from this, if you're a newer person and tuning in and saying, oh my God, am I making a mistake by getting hooked in this? You're not. There's lots of fun stuff to do. I love the game. I log in still daily. But after you've done anything for a long time, it becomes very easy to just really kind of focus on those negative things, because we've done all the positive stuff already, and there is positive stuff that's happening. But anyways, I'll keep circular talking, but that was really kind of the point I wanted to get across.